Hello, lovers of extremism and horror. This is Pepsi-Games, and welcome to my channel. Here we play games, get scared together in horror movies, admire the plots, enjoy the gameplay, but all this is accompanied by unusual and mystical stories from the lives of people in America and Russia. Today we have the dark and atmospheric Alan Wake, the story of a writer who fights against darkness and his nightmares. Get ready for thrills, disturbing music, and, of course, my unforgettable bedtime stories. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Your support is very important. Let's go!
Stephen King once wrote that nightmares exist outside of logic, and there's little fun to be had in explanations. They're antithetical to the poetry of fear. In a horror story, the victim keeps asking why, but there can be no explanation, and there shouldn't be one. The unanswered mystery is what stays with us the longest, and it's what we'll remember. My name is Alan Wake. I'm a writer. I've always had a vivid imagination, but this dream unsettled me. It was wild and dark and weird, even by my standards. So yes, it began with a dream. Following a typical nightmare pattern, I was late, desperately trying to reach my destination, a lighthouse. For some urgent reason, I couldn't remember. I'd been driving too fast down a coastal road to get there. I'd seen the hitchhiker too late.
You know, everyone has memories that seem simple, but for some reason stick in your mind the most. For some, it's their first party, for others, their first concert, and for others, even their first fight or a spontaneous kiss at a bus stop. For me, it's night walks. Really. If someone asks me what my youth smelled like, I would say cold asphalt, street lights, and freedom. And maybe a little bit of energy drink from the nearest 24-hour store. During the day, the city seems ordinary. Cars, people, rush, work, business. Everyone is rushing somewhere, always in a hurry, with headphones in their ears and coffee from a vending machine. But as soon as the sun goes down, it's as if someone presses a secret switch, and the world becomes different. It's the same city, but with a new atmosphere, as if it switches to night mode, you know? At night, it feels like it belongs only to you. Even the air is different. Cool, humid, and it feels like anything is possible. It's like seize the moment and you really do seize it. I remember my first real night walk. Not the one where we just stayed at a friend's place and went home at 10 in the evening. That's not serious at all. But when the clock struck midnight, when the streets were already empty, and every sound was twice as loud, as if you were in ASMR mode in real life. It was summer, warm, so sticky that during the day you just wanted to sit under the air conditioner and stare at your phone. But at night it was perfect. Just like in the movies, only you're the main character. I put on my sneakers and an old t-shirt, the very one that half the city had already seen me wearing in photos, and just went outside, as if it were the most natural thing to do. No drama, just vibes. I didn't tell my parents or my friends, I just walked. Towards the streetlights, the shadows, and my thoughts. The playlist in my headphones played like the soundtrack to life. And at that moment, I realized, this is it, the feeling of true freedom. No filters, no likes, just you and the night. And it was a strange feeling walking down familiar streets, but in a different time. It was as if someone had turned on an alternate version of the city, a nighttime DLC. During the day, they are noisy, charged with energy, everyone rushing somewhere, the sounds of horns, conversations, food deliveries whizzing by. But at night, they seem abandoned. The shop windows are closed, the windows are dark, Only the streetlights make spots of light on the asphalt, as if someone had splashed yellow watercolor on gray with a brush. And you walk, jumping from one spot to another, as if playing your game. Don't step in the dark. Yes, we are all supposed to be adults, serious, with adult tasks, deadlines, and silent chats. But at moments like this, your inner child wakes up on its own without warning. It just bursts in. You're back in elementary school, jumping from island to island of light, and it's not cringe, it's a rush. It's a little rebellion against reality. That was when I first got the feeling that nighttime was something romantic. Not in the sense of a date, roses, and candles, no, not that at all. But in terms of mood, emo vibes, as they say. It's like nothing is happening. You're just walking. But inside, it's like music is playing. You know how in movies, the hero walks down the street to a track that perfectly suits the moment? It was as if someone had taken an A24-level soundtrack and put it in my ears, and you're no longer just walking, you're living the scene. Only the music was in my head, but it sounded louder than any speaker. When you walk at night, you start to notice little things that you don't see at all during the day. Like the light from the street lamp reflecting in puddles so clearly that it's as if a portal has opened. Like cats ruling the roost in courtyards they hide during the day, but at night the city belongs to them, as if in their own cartoon. Like passers-by you meet once every 10 minutes, each of whom seems like a mysterious character. Who are they? Why are they also walking at night? They are like mini NPCs in your game, and each has their own backstory. And for a second, your paths cross, a glance, a nod, and you both disappear into your own worlds. Without words, but with understanding. I was 17 at the time. An age when all your emotions are at their peak, as if you have a dramatic TikTok playlist playing inside you all the time. Every event seems faithful, every feeling seems real and powerful. You can fall in love in 3 seconds, become disappointed in 1 sentence, and feel like the main character in your own story, just by hearing the right track in your headphones. And that first night is memorable precisely because I felt, yes, this is it, real adulthood. Not exams, not your first iPhone, not likes under a photo in your feed. But these steps through the night city, when you decide for yourself where to go. Without a navigator. Without a script. You just walk. The coolest thing about night walks is the feeling of freedom. The kind you rarely get during the day. During the day, you have a schedule. School, university, work, chats pinging, someone waiting, somewhere to go. But at night, it's like you've dropped out of the system. You don't owe anyone anything. No notifications. You just walk. And the city seems to adjust to this mood. Even the noise of cars is different. It's not annoying, but rather sounds like part of the sound design. The rare passing headlights seem like separate scenes from a movie. Some people are driving home, some are going to work the night shift, and some just can't sleep, like you. I was walking down the main street and thinking, this is my life. I can turn in any direction, and no one will say no. It was almost a physical sensation, as if boundaries had disappeared and you could really do anything. Of course, in the morning my parents might ask where I had been, and maybe even launch into an interrogation. But at that moment, you don't think about that. Because nighttime is a place of honesty. No unnecessary noise, no expectations from others. You are left alone with your thoughts. And suddenly you realize that these thoughts are yours. Not other people's voices in your head, not advice, not comments, but you yourself. The real you. I noticed one peculiarity back then. At night, even the most ordinary places become different. It's as if someone has applied a filter with the effect of nostalgia plus strange dream. The courtyard, where children play and scooters race around during the day, turns into a place from some kind of dream at night. The swings are empty, the sandbox is wet with dew, the streetlight flickers as if it were glitching. And you walk by and catch yourself thinking, wow, I've been here 1,000 times, but I've never seen it like this before. And this magic, seeing the familiar in a new way, is the essence of night walks. When the world remains the same, but you look at it with different eyes, deeper, more honestly. a little more maturely. And this understanding stays with you for a long time, not as a thought, but as a feeling. As if something important clicked inside. Not loudly, but forever. And perhaps the most romantic thing is not the walk itself, but what happens inside you. What happens to you while you are simply walking? You move forward, and it seems to you that something is bound to happen around the next corner. Something important. You don't know what it is yet, maybe a meeting, maybe an event, or maybe just a thought that will turn everything upside down. And you're not even afraid. On the contrary, you're waiting for it. That's how it feels when you're young. As if every step is a cutscene to something new. As if a new level is beginning in your life, and you're ready. Almost. I walked down the empty street and took in every little detail, as if I wanted to preserve them in my memory in HD quality. The stars, which are almost invisible in the city, but if you look closely, they are there, twinkling like secret signals from another world. The wind rustling the leaves, as if whispering something. The smell of heated asphalt mixed with something floral, probably bushes blooming somewhere nearby, or someone pouring perfume out of a window. All of this together gave me the feeling that I was in a movie about myself. A light art house film with elements of drama and hope. You know, sometimes I think, maybe that's why I love open world games so much. Because there, too, you can just walk, look, explore, get lost, and come back. You don't have to complete the mission right away. You don't have to run all the time. You can just be. Just stare at the sunset, soak up the atmosphere, find your rhythm. Night walks are the same as open worlds, only in real life. No markers on the map, no saves, no mini-map, but with real air, random thoughts, and unexpected insights. And as corny as it may sound, that was when I first realized that true freedom lies in simple things. Not in big decisions, not in grand plans, not in moving to a different city or country, but in simply going where you want to go. Without permission, without a plan, without fear. That's what my first real encounter with the night looked like. Nothing special, really. The city, the streetlights, the asphalt, me. But for me, it was a whole world. My first real open world, in which I was the main character. And you know what's the coolest thing? That these walks are never the same. Every night is unique. Every city has its own vibe. Every summer is slightly different. And the more time passes, the more I want to preserve these fragments in my memory. Because it is precisely these fragments, these nothing special moments that make up the most important pieces of life. After that first night, something seemed to switch in me. You know how it is in games, you find a hidden location, and now it's always accessible. If I used to think that the city only lived during the day, in the flow of people, cars, business, and noise, now I knew. Real life begins after midnight, when everything freezes, when you can hear even your own footsteps and thoughts. And for some reason, I really wanted to return to this state again and again. As if somewhere out there, in the darkness, someone was waiting for me. Or something important was yet to happen. That's how my places came to be. Everyone has places like that on the map, a little strange, not the most beautiful, but somehow familiar. Places where everything feels different. For me, it was a few courtyards, the embankment, and the roof of an old house. During the day, they seemed completely ordinary, blending into the background. But at night, they seemed to come alive, switching to members-only mode. Like secret levels, accessible only to those who don't sleep. For example, the embankment. During the day, it is crowded with people. Mothers with strollers, kids on skateboards, couples with ice cream, tourists with speakers and selfie sticks. Everything is loud and chaotic, like in a shopping mall before closing time. But at night, it is empty. Silence, as if someone had pressed mute on the whole city. Only the lights are reflected in the water, and it seems that the river is breathing with you. Right in time. Sometimes a rare bicycle passed by, a silhouette with a dog flashed by, but this only emphasized the feeling of solitude. Like in a movie, where you stay after the final credits and watch an extra scene that only the most attentive will see. I sat on a bench and listened to the water rushing, the city sighing, as if telling me something important, but quietly, so that no one but me could hear. There was also a place in the courtyards. An abandoned playground that no one had repaired, but it was still standing like an artifact from another time. The swings there were so rusty that they creaked even in a light breeze. During the day, it was just a dreary place that no one paid any attention to. But at night, it was magical. The silence was so thick that it seemed as if you could hear your own heartbeat. The light from the lantern cast long, almost surreal shadows on the ground, and you sit there, looking at them, as if you were in a movie theater at a screening that exists only for you. And the creaking of the swing was not just a sound, but real music. So raw, so alive, almost disturbing, but somehow warm. It went deeper than any beat in headphones. Not because it sounded perfect, but because it was real. No editing. No auto-tune. Reality with a sense of presence. I have often noticed that it is easier to think at night. Not just reflect but actually feel thoughts, how they come, how they sound, how they connect with each other. During the day, everything distracts me. Phone calls, notifications, deadlines, other people's conversations. My head is like an overflowing chat room. It's hard to hear myself. But at night, there is silence, and thoughts become loud, clear, unfiltered. You sit down on a bench and suddenly start talking to yourself. Sometimes you even whisper out loud. And it doesn't seem strange at all. At moments like these, it's as if you're having a conversation with your future self. Or your past self. It's as if there's an external you and a real, internal you. And finally, you have time to talk. And the roof. That's a different story. Almost sacred. That's where I first felt what it means to be above the city, not in the sense of pride, but in the sense of detachment. As if I had broken away from the noisy flow and hovered above it. It was an old 5-story building, so typical, with peeling paint on the walls and a narrow staircase. You could climb out through the window in the stairwell. The window was tight, but we knew how to open it slightly. There was no spectacular wow view from the top, no observation decks or Instagram-worthy scenery. Just the roofs of other houses, antennas, a couple of distant lights, and the sound of the wind. But that's what made it special. Sitting there at night, dangling our legs over the edge, was almost a ritual. It was such a private moment when you weren't on the internet, not in the dorm, not with your family, but just with yourself. You look at the lights, feel the wind in your hair, and it seems like you have thousands of roads ahead of you, and you can still choose any one of them. It's as if the whole world is on pause, and you're at the loading point of a new chapter. At moments like these, I thought about everything. About the future. About who I wanted to become. What would happen in a year. In 5 years. I imagined different versions of myself, and they all seemed possible. Not scary. Not confusing. Just free. And yes, maybe I'm romanticizing a little, but if you don't romanticize moments like these, then what does make sense? And you know, there was something very romantic about these walks. Even when I was alone. Or especially when I was alone. Because romance isn't just about him and her roses, candles, and movie kisses in the rain. No. Romance can be you and the night. You and the city. You and your own thoughts, which finally aren't rushing, aren't arguing, but simply sounding real. There were moments like this. You're walking down the street, no one around, and suddenly music comes from somewhere. Not loud, just a little, as if it accidentally seeped through a crack in someone else's window or from a distant speaker in the courtyard. You don't know who is listening to it, you don't know why right now, but suddenly it seems that this track was turned on especially for you. The soundtrack to your walk, to your thoughts. Music you didn't choose, but which perfectly matches the moment. Sometimes it's something familiar, sometimes you're hearing it for the first time, but it still gives you goosebumps. And then you walk past a store or a shop window, and in the reflection, it's just you and the streetlights. The whole street behind you is blurred, everything around you is like a backdrop. And you look at your reflection as if it were a scene from a movie where you are the main character. No dialogue, no frills, Just your gaze and the light. Such random, almost invisible details create the feeling that the whole world is not just a backdrop, but a real co-author of your mood. It doesn't interfere. It plays along. It adapts to your inner state not on purpose, but very accurately. I often wonder why such moments seem so important in youth. Why do they stick in your memory as if etched on glass? Probably because everything is experienced more deeply then. Without protection. Without distance. You just let everything in: light, sound, smells, and it stays there. A simple walk at night suddenly becomes a symbol of freedom. Not abstract, not theoretical, but real. You are in this city, at this time, on this street, and no one else decides where you turn. Smells, sounds, lights, everything seems to stick firmly in your memory. You may forget names, dates, even faces, but you will never forget that very night with the wind, with wet sneakers, with a streetlight reflecting in a puddle. I remember once going for a walk in the rain. It was July, a warm downpour, not scary, not angry, but like in romantic scenes. Soft, warm, as if summer had simply decided to embrace you in a different way. During the day, of course, I would have hidden because of my hair, because of my clothes, because people were watching. But at night, it was an adventure, almost like a protest against boring reality. Raindrops fell on the asphalt, streetlights scattered in puddles, turning each of them into a small mirror. The world seemed a little magical, as if it had shifted into a different mode. I walked and felt that this was the best moment of summer. No plan, no reason, no company. Even though my hair was wet, my sneakers were soaked through, and my phone was silent somewhere deep in my pocket, it still seemed perfect. Real. The kind of moment you'll remember later, even if you don't save a single photo. On walks like this, there was a feeling of anticipation of a miracle. It didn't matter if it actually happened. The main thing was that you were walking and thinking, what if something important happens around the corner? Maybe a meeting, maybe a coincidence, or maybe just a thought that would turn everything upside down. And that anticipation made every night special. It seems like you're repeating the same route, but the feeling is different every time. I think that feeling is the romance of youth. When you don't need anything supernatural to feel happy. It's enough to go outside when everyone is asleep and just walk, listening to the city breathe. The older you get, the less often you go on walks like that. I noticed this pretty quickly. At 17, you can go out at 2 in the morning and walk anywhere you want. At 20, you already have worries. School, work, plans. But the most amazing thing is that even when everything changes, the feeling of the night remains the same. I remember one evening in my freshman year, studying, piles of notes, looming deadlines. I was sitting in my room, tired, and suddenly I felt like I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my headphones, put on my hoodie, and just went out. And you know, it immediately felt easier. The city greeted me with the same cool air, streetlights, and empty streets. I walked and realized, yes, this is it, my place of power. With age, night walks become quieter. If before I used to run around courtyards, laugh, catch the rain, now I just walked slowly and listened. And that was beautiful too. Because in youth, the night is about emotions, about shouting, about everything is possible. And then it becomes about calmness. And that's an amazing contrast. At 17, I felt like a movie heroine. At 20, I felt that the night helped me think everything through. You walk, and every step seems to put everything in its place. You know, there's this thing. During the day, all your problems seem huge. Arguments, exams, work, deadlines. But at night, they become quieter. It's as if the night has a calming effect. I was walking down the street and thinking, okay, I'll figure everything out tomorrow. Right now, I just want to listen to the city. And that's probably the most mature part of walking, the ability to slow down. I used to wait for a miracle at night. And then I realized, the miracle is already here. In the fact that you are walking, breathing, and seeing all of this. I also noticed that with age, you start to pay attention to other details. When you're young, you look at the lights and think, wow, how beautiful. But later you start to catch moments. How the air smells before the rain, how the leaves rustle, how a rare car drives by and disappears into the darkness. These little things take on a special depth. And, you know, it was in moments like these that I caught that very romance. But it was no longer youthful, but more mature. It wasn't about being in love with a specific person, but about being in love with life itself. You walk along and realize, yes, everything isn't perfect. But right now, everything is right. There was one night that I still remember. I went out for a walk in winter. It was freezing, and the air was so cold it burned my lungs. The streets were empty, and the snow crunched under my feet. Suddenly, it started snowing. Huge flakes, the light of the street lamps, and everything around me became white and quiet. I walked and felt like I was inside some kind of magic. It seemed like nothing special, just snow. But at that moment, it felt like a gift. And there is something very honest about that. Because night walks don't require anything from you. You don't need a reason, you don't need a plan. It's enough to just go out and be. I often think, why is it that at night we feel everything more strongly? Probably because it's quieter around us. During the day there is too much noise, information, conversation. And at night the world falls silent, and you hear yourself. When I walk at night, I feel like I'm returning to myself as a teenager who first went out on the street at midnight and thought, wow, this is life. And even though I have other concerns and other thoughts now, inside I am still the same. And you know what's the best part? These walks stay with you forever. You can move to another city, change jobs, change your surroundings, but the night is the same everywhere. It will always be waiting for you. Just step outside, and you'll find yourself back in that same world where there are only streetlights, the road, and you. That's probably why I love to remember my night walk so much. They're not about specific events, but about a state of mind. About the freedom that was there then and remains now. And to be honest, I think everyone has their own night. Some people love noisy company, some prefer to sit at home with a book. And I've always had these walks. Simple, quiet, but infinitely important. You know, when you look back, you realize that youth is rarely remembered for anything grand. Not grades, not exam dates, not some super important events. It's moments like these that stick in your mind. Simple ones. When you walk through the city at night and feel that life is real. Maybe that's why I always keep these images in my head. Wet asphalt under the streetlights, empty swings, music from a random window, the smell of lilacs in June. These are all simple details, but they make up the feeling of youth. Sometimes it seems to me that night walks are like a secret language. Not everyone understands it, but if you felt it even once, you remember it forever. For some, night is just a time of day. For others, it's a whole universe. And in this universe, you can truly be yourself. I've always loved that you don't have to pretend at night. You don't have to be cheerful. You don't have to be serious. You don't have to rush anywhere. You just walk. And at that moment, you are real. No roles, no filters, no scripts. And there is something very romantic about that. Because, in essence, night is a date with yourself. You meet your thoughts, your dreams. Sometimes memories, sometimes plans. And it's the most honest date there can be. When I think about the future, I always imagine myself on the move. It doesn't matter if it's a bustling city or a quiet village, if someone is with me or if I'm alone, I know that one day I'll go out again at night and walk down the street. And it will be the same me, just a little older. Perhaps I will have other concerns, perhaps a completely different rhythm of life. But the night will always remain the same. And every time I go out into the street, I will remember that 17-year-old girl who decided to take a night walk for the first time and discovered a whole new world for herself. And to be honest, I think everyone has moments like that. Maybe for you it's not walks, but a train ride, or your first trip to the sea, or a conversation with a friend until morning. Anything that gives you the feeling. This is it, this is real. And these moments stay with us forever. So, if you're listening to me now, and you ever feel down or want to feel alive again, just try going out for a walk at night. No destination, no map, no agenda. Just step by step. Listen to the city, look at the lights, soak up the silence. I am sure that every walk like this has its own meaning, even if you don't understand it right away. And perhaps the main conclusion I have drawn over all these years is that life is not made up of big events, but of small moments. And it is these moments that make us who we are.
I told myself
For
I could
me,
rest here,
it's night walks.
sleep here,
For you, it
and
may be
forget about
something
my
else.
work.
But the main thing is not to forget to appreciate such moments. And yes,
I thought we could be happy
it
here.
may sound a little pompous, but I'll say it anyway. Each of us has our own night. And sometimes, to find answers, you just need to go out into it and listen to what it whispers. That's it. This is my epilogue. A simple story about how I grew up with my night walks. And if you recognize yourself in my words, then we have more in common than you might think. Well, friends, for today, the light of the flashlight is fading. But darkness has not yet been defeated. The continuation awaits us ahead, and who knows what nightmares will still break out. If you want to take a step further with me, like this video, write your theories in the comments, and be sure to subscribe so you don't get lost in this darkness. This is Pepsi Games signing off. See you next night.